Anyone who has ever been a parent knows that children are born with the ability to embrace psychological operations without even knowing it. Case in point, how many of you have ever attempted to confront a child about some poor choice or poor behavior and then gotten the whataboutism argument if they had a sibling? Well, what about when blah, blah, blah did blah, blah, blah bad thing? Or all of my friends are doing, and then a list of all these other terrible things. So comparatively speaking, I'm actually pretty good. You see, this is a trap that even some into their adult years continue to fall into. Dana Perino is not some young little twit on Fox News. They're almost forgivable, some of them, because they're bikini models. Dana Perino was the Apologist spokesperson for the Bush Wars 20 years ago. And she was a fairly accomplished individual at that time. For her to do what she did yesterday on Fox News is unconscionable, and in my administration would be prosecutable. There would be somebody looking at charges for pushing out false information during a quote-unquote national emergency. Now, some of you know what I'm talking about, some of you don't. I did a post about this because I was watching just in the background Fox, listening to the stats, listening to different things, and this chart popped up, and I looked at it and I knew immediately it was a lie. And I had to listen for a minute to what the guy was saying about these numbers, and I realized what Fox was doing. Some of you have looked at this and go, how can 53 and 48 be on the same chart? They don't add up to 100. That shows you exactly how deceptive this is. They aren't talking about one group of numbers here. What they have done here is taken three separate statistics and then cherry-picked numbers out of those three separate statistics and then put them up on a chart to make you believe that you, 20 to 64-year-old American, are nearly as likely to be seriously ill with COVID-19 as those 65 and older, when nothing could be further from the truth. Now, let me try to explain this in a clear and coherent way, which should have been the job of the woman in the lower right, but she didn't. Okay, let's just take that top number, 65 and older, 53%. Forget everything else for a minute. What that number is, if you go to all the hospitals everywhere in the United States and you take all patients who are 65 and older, whatever that number is, who have come into the ER presenting with symptoms of COVID-19, already sick, not all people that are 65 and older, just those walking in to the hospital sick with this. Of that group of people, 53% of them get admitted, 47% of them go home. Now think about that. If you have 100,000 people, 65 and older, showing up, and this is across all hospitals everywhere, 47% of those 65 and older get sent home. 53% get admitted. Now that's just one group of people with one static number. I just made up 100,000 just because that's an easy round number. That next group, the one they have outlined in red, 20 to 64, that's not the same amount of people. That could be 100 people. That could be 500 people. While the number above could be in the hundreds of thousands of people. That means of people who showed up at the ER with symptoms of COVID-19, 20 to 64, And like I said, that could be 100 people. And in this case, that would mean they sent home 52 of them and they admitted 48 of them. But it's a completely irrelevant statistic to the one above it, because they're taking numbers from two different groups and putting them up together without telling you the number of people 65 and older going into the ICU or going into the hospital with these kind of symptoms outnumbers the group below it 10, 20 to 1. And that's why the number at the very bottom is 0. Could be 1, could be 100, could be 1,000. We don't know. But none of them warranted admission. This is why what she did is so criminal, because she knew what she did. Now, some of you have made this allegation that I pick on Fox. I have picked on the left, especially the establishment left, in this country mercilessly. And this is why I have tried to educate people about breaking out of the left-right paradigm, that every time you hear something negative about Fox, that you automatically think the person is defending CNN or MSNBC or something like that. This is that big lie about voting against. This comparative morality, which is why I started with that. There's no such thing as comparative morality. There's right and there's wrong. There's no lesser of two evils. Evil is evil. There is no such thing as the lesser of two evils. Evil is evil. Now, real quick, let's talk about some actual facts, just in straight numbers. On a planet of 8 billion people, which is how we're going to talk about this, because that's how it's being talked about in the media. Global pandemic, right? Global issue. On a planet of 8 billion people, a minor outbreak occurred in November of last year, roughly around the end of it. So we are, let's see, November, December, January, February, March. November to December was 1 month. December to January was another. January to February was a third. February to March was a fourth. So in 4 months, a quarter of a year, 255,000 people, grand total, have been affected by it. Actually affected. Either have it, got it, and recovered, or passed away, or currently have it. 250,000 people. And I'm going to do the math, as boring as it is, every single time I have an opportunity to. On a planet of 8 billion people, 800 million represents 10%. 80 million represents 1%. 8 million represents 0.1%. 800,000 represents 0.01%. We are starting to approach a third of that total number of people affected by it. Not dead, not deathly ill. Active cases, 154,000 people out of 8 billion. 10,000 dead in 4 months out of 8 billion. In China, the numbers have stopped growing. In China, the numbers have stopped growing. In Italy, they will stop growing. The grand total number of people affected by this is now very, very likely to not even reach 1 million out of 8 billion. And that means total affected, meaning people who got it, people who got better. The deaths will not reach has no chance of reaching 1 million people. After 4 months, there's only 10,000. Even if you doubled them over the same period. Let's see, in 4 more months, let's see if it doubled, that it went to 20,000. That would be 30,000. In 8 months. And then let's say it doubled again. And it went for an entire year. What would the grand total number be? Well, let's see, 10,000 in the first 4 months, 20,000 in the next 4 months, 40,000 in the final 4 months of a year. What would that be? 10 plus 20 plus 40. That would be 70,000 dead. Do you know how many people it killed? H1N1 killed in 2009 in the world? 60 million. That's right. In the 1 year, based on current projections, this could kill 70,000 people in the world. H1N1 killed, on the low side, 60 million. 70,000 versus 60 million. This is why I have said we have a criminal government in charge. And these are just different graphics I had brought up. I was going to talk about all the whataboutism people. We have a criminal government in charge of this planet, and don't think that DC isn't. It's why other governments have said what DC has done is criminal, and it is. And they have a very powerful media that has its tentacles all throughout the world, able to affect and manipulate things. And this woman needs to eat her words. She's not some young little tart. She's aged well. I'll give her that for her age. She's older than me. But conservatism is not based on facts, logic, or reality. It's based on certain assumptions and premises that don't hold true in the real world. Because what are we seeing now? And I really want an explanation for this. Why is it that every time there's an emergency, socialism is the answer? And don't anyone dare try to make the argument that what the government is doing right now is not socialism, is not social engineering, ordering people off the beach, ordering businesses to freeze prices, ordering different organizations to stop certain activities like repossessions and shutting off people power and all this kind of stuff. All this social engineering stuff. Why is it that every time there's an emergency, socialism is the answer? 2008, 2001, now here in 2020, but the rest of the time, capitalism is the order of the day. Capitalism is what's needed. Unless things go south, just like preppers. If you don't think what preppers are doing is nothing but socialism, that they're trying to cloud with some other name. We're going to get a group of people, like-minded people, we're going to get them all together, and everybody's going to be on the same mission. The well-being of the group is the mission, which is the definition of socialism. If you don't think the government is exercising control, and I know I have the people out there typing right now, they're saying, socialism is when the government takes direct control of business. You don't think they're in direct control of business right now? You don't think what they're doing is controlling businesses and using their power in the media to manipulate things? Even though the facts are literally arguing with everything they're saying? You notice they don't put up numbers like this. You would think they would. See, they realize they have to cherry pick certain things. They're not going to tell you that serious or critical cases is only 5% of active cases. Serious or critical cases are only 5%. But the kids at the beach know it. The girls out there in bikinis running around, they know it. They actually, at Fox, they did. They had to cut the guy off because his wife was a nurse. He was at Clearwater Beach, and they're saying, do you think this is a problem? He's like, no, my wife is a nurse. This is a cold. If you get it, you treat it like a cold. We're not going to ruin our vacation because of it. And then they cut him off. It was hilarious. It was because they thought for sure they had somebody that they were going to be able to get to say something to agree with them. And they couldn't find one person on Clearwater Beach. And I'll do these numbers again because I think it's important to hear these numbers. It has taken 4 months, starting last November, November to December, December to January, January to February, February to March. It has taken 4 months to reach 10,000 deaths. Now, let's say that number doubles in the next 4 months. That would be 20,000 dead. And then doubles again in the final 4 months going into next November. That would be 40,000 dead. So you take the 10,000 plus the 20,000 plus the 40,000. You get 70,000 dead. So let's do the math. And you can look up the stats from H1N1 in 2009 and 10. 60 million people dead. 60 million people dead around the globe. Not even close. Not even in the same. Dengue is going to kill more people. Dengue fever is going to kill more people than this. This hoax, I don't even think I have the proper words to describe it yet. I really don't. But this comparative morality thing, that needs to go away if we're ever going to figure this out. Everyone is going to have the moral fortitude and courage to stand up and say, they're lying. That is a lie, regardless of whether it's on the left, regardless of whether it's on the right. This whole comparative, well, gosh, boy, if Hillary had been in charge, the lies would have been even worse. No. You cannot fall into this trap of comparative morality. You wouldn't have let your kids do it. You shouldn't do it. We need to stand up and have bigger voices saying, wait a minute, they're lying. They're lying right to our faces, and we're letting it happen. And this is perfect evidence of it. I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.